Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna complete this isometric drafting project. So this is what we're gonna draw. This paper is a different size, so some of the measurements won't look exactly the same on the green paper. This is 8.5 by 11. The green drafting paper is size A, which is 9 by 12. So what you wanna do is look at a sheet that says isometric drafting project and get all of the materials that you need, get the handout for the project, and then go ahead and make a drafting template. That set of directions is not on there because you should know now that you need to make a drafting template before you do anything with any drafting assignment. And it's the same as what you did with the one view orthographic projection project, exactly the same. So use that one to make a template. But in number 2, what you're gonna do is follow the directions on the process sheet for centering up an isometric drawing. So that's what we're gonna switch to now. So there's that. So we've got a process sheet for how to center up an isometric drawing. There are multiple ways to center up an isometric drawing. This is just one. So I'm gonna go through those directions step by step and demonstrate that. So number 1 says obtain the drawing you're supposed to draw. So we have it. We've already been handed that out. We've got it. And remember, it's easy. The easiest thing to do to keep yourself organized is check these off as you get them done. Number 2 says to obtain a sheet of computer paper and all the drafting equipment and supplies that you need. So we've got that. You need a blank sheet of just computer paper. And number 3, you take down the sheet of computer paper. So we've got our template here. You don't want to take that off. You take this down a certain way. So what I'm going to do is orient the computer paper so it is above the top of the green paper and to the right of the green paper. If I'm right-handed. If I'm left-handed, I would do that over here. Because what I want to do is I'm going to draw on this sheet of computer paper, but since I'm drawing from left to right, if I go off of the computer paper and hit the board, it's okay. I'm not hitting my drawing. Same when I draw from bottom to top for vertical lines. If I hit the board with the pencil, it doesn't affect my actual drawing on the green paper. So I'm gonna line this up with my T-square and tape it down. So I'm gonna get that like I need it. I'm gonna take down all 4 corners. Make sure your tape's good and flat. And it won't hurt anything because this is drafting tape, tape right on the green paper. All right, so we've got that done. We're gonna check that off. All right, number 4 says to draw the isometric axis with construction lines. So remember, I'm gonna switch to a sharp 9A pencil, or 9H pencil. So remember, to draw the isometric axis, first thing I need to make sure I do is switch from the 45-degree triangle that we were using for orthographic projection to a 30-60 triangle for isometric drawings, okay? So if you look at the actual drawing, most of what we're gonna draw is gonna be to the left of the vertical line for the isometric axis. So when we orient this isometric axis, as small as this object is, we could put the vertical line right in the center. But I always like to go a little bit more to the right because most of what we're gonna draw is gonna be towards the left. That gives me more room over here. So I'm gonna grab my 30-60 triangle and my T-square, and I'm gonna go a little bit more than halfway across, and I'm gonna draw a vertical construction line, longer than what I need. Then I'm gonna flip my triangle down to 30 degrees. Remember, this is 30 degrees and this is 30 degrees. If I did this, that would be 60 degrees. That's not what we wanna do. So I'm gonna line my triangle up with the bottom of the vertical line I just drew and draw a construction line 30 degrees to the right. Flip this over, and then from that same vertex, 30 degrees to the left. And I'm just drawing longer than what I think I'm gonna need. So now we've got our isometric axis. Now, we'll check that off. And then the next thing we've gotta do in number 5 is find the overall length of the object to be drawn and lay it out on the left 30-degree line. So we've gotta look at our drawing. There's no measurements on this drawing. We've gotta physically take the measurements off of the drawing from the handout. So we're gonna measure the overall length. The easiest place to find that is this bottom line right here. So we're gonna measure that. So if I measure that with my 16 scale, I find out that it is 3 5/8 of an inch long, okay? So you can even write that down if you want to. So that's 3 5/8 of an inch right there, okay? Now, once I do that, what I'm gonna do in number 6 is draw a light vertical construction line at that point. So what I've gotta do, if you look at this, if I lay this up here, this point is this, okay? So I'm gonna lay that out on this line right here, okay? That's the line we're gonna use for that. It's the same line. So I'm gonna put my 0 down here at this vertex where all 3 lines of the isometric axis met, and I'm gonna use my 9/8 pencil, and I'm gonna come up and lay out 3 5/8 of an inch, which is right there. So I just laid that line out right there, okay? Now, the next thing we gotta do, if you look at number 7, is we have to find, in number 6, we gotta draw a light vertical construction line at that point. So at that point, I'm gonna use my 30-60 triangle, and I'm gonna draw a vertical construction line. And I'm gonna draw it longer than what I think I need. So I'm just gonna draw it up, a long line. So we've got that done. Now in number 7, I need to find the overall height of the object and lay it out on the vertical line of the isometric axis. So if you notice, we've got 2 vertical lines. One that we just drew, and the original vertical line of the isometric axis. It's gonna save us time to lay out the overall height on this vertical line of the isometric axis rather than on this line. You could do it on this line, but it just saves time to do it on this one. So again, we don't have any measurements. And if you think about this, to find the overall height, that means the total height, there's the easiest place to do it right there, okay? And that is this line, all right? So I'm gonna measure that. So if I measure that, we end up with 2 3/4 inches. And I'm gonna write that down. So that's 2 3/4 inches. 1/4 and 1/4 mean the same thing. Now, so what I've got to do, if you remember, is to find the overall height, which we did, and lay it out on the vertical line of the isometric axis. So we've got to measure up here. Even though we measured here, we're going to lay that out on the vertical line of the isometric axis. So I've got to come up 2 3/4 inches, and it's important to be very accurate here, and lay that out right there. That's our overall height. So now, the next thing we've got to do in number 8 is draw a construction line 30 degrees to the left and 30 degrees to the right of that isometric axis where we just laid out that point for the overall height. So, and these are all still construction lines. I'm going to grab my 30-60 triangle. And at that point that I just laid out, I'm going to draw a line that crosses the last vertical line. From the left at 30 degrees, I'm going to flip this over. I'm gonna go to the right at 30 degrees. I'm gonna make it longer than what I think I need. So now that's what we have. So if we look next, in number 9, we need to find the overall depth of the object and lay it out on the 30-degree line of the isometric axis to the right, okay? So that would be this line right here. So we laid out our overall length here. We're gonna lay out our depth here, and we've done our height here. So again, if we look at the drawing, the easiest place to get that, since we're using the isometric axis, if you notice, there's that point. If we measure that line, we can measure it right there. Any of these lines should be the same length though, so you can measure any of them that you want. But to stay consistent, we'll just go with that bottom line. So if I measure that, I've got 1 5/8. So that's 1 5/8. All right, and I'm gonna lay that out on this right line of the isometric axis, 1 5/8. Right there, okay? All right, so we've got that laid out. Now, in number 10, we're gonna draw a vertical construction line at that point. So again, I'm gonna take my 30-60 triangle, I'm gonna line it up with that point, and I'm going to draw a vertical line that crosses this 30-degree line. Okay, so you can start to see the box forming. Okay, now, number 11 is to connect all of the lines to form a box that will encompass the overall measurements of the object. Those are called the extents. So basically what we're wanting to do is we're gonna draw a box that encompasses this block. The extents of it means it's gonna touch the overall length, the overall height, and the overall depth. And this is gonna save us time. Could we go ahead and draw this? We could, but we don't need to. That's gonna take more time. We'll draw that on the green paper. So we're just drawing a box that this will fit down into. Hey, fellas.
Hey.
So what we're gonna do now is to help us out, we're going to erase some of the extraneous lines that we don't need. And this will help you. So I don't need this. I don't need this, or this, or this, or this. So if you look down, please make sure that you use a drafting brush. So now the only thing we need, if you look at the drawing, we've got a box that's going to encompass the front. So there's where the front will go, and that's right here. And then we've got something for the right side. So that would be right here and right here. All right, so all that's left is the top. So to do that, we're going to start at that point right there where those two lines cross, and we're going to string a 30-degree line out to the right there. And then we're going to flip our triangle over and come from this point right here, that vertex, and string a line 30 degrees to the left, and where they cross will give us our top view of the box for the extents. So we don't need to do any measuring. So I'm going to line my triangle up with that point. Can you see that all right? Mm-hmm. We'll string that line there. Remember, it doesn't matter how long I draw it. I just want them to cross. Then we'll flip this over, line it up with that point right there. And there we go. There's where they cross. So if it helps you, you can get rid of what we call tails. All these little lines are tails. So basically, we drew a rectangular solid that block will fit right down into, okay? Those are called the extents. Overall length, overall height, overall depth, okay? Okay, so now we've got that part done. We're gonna use that to help us center it up. So if you look at number 12, it says to find the topmost point of the object. So that means, where is the topmost portion of this object at? Well, if you look at going from bottom to top, it's going to be that point right there. That corner of this box is the topmost point of the object, okay? So we found it. Number 13 says to draw a horizontal line at that point. Now, I've said that there are no horizontal lines in isometric drawings, but remember, we're just trying to center this up. This is isometric. We're going to end up drawing a 2D box around this to help us center it up, and it makes it easier for you. So we're going to use our T-square and line it up with that point at the very top, and we're going to draw a horizontal line. Make sure it's longer than this box is, okay, the extents box. So there's our horizontal line right there. Now, in 14, we're going to find the bottommost point of the object. Well, if you look, the thing furthest to the bottom is where we started at isometric axis. That is part of this object. So we found it. Now, in number 15, we draw a horizontal construction line at that point. And it's important to make sure that you switch back and forth between 9H pencils and HB pencils, number 2 pencils when you need to. So we're going to line that right up with that point and draw another horizontal construction line. Now we've got it. All right. So, keeping in the same method, we got to find in number 16 the leftmost point of the object. Well, the thing furthest left on this object is this line right there. So we found it. And number 17 says to continue the vertical construction line at that point so that it crosses the horizontal lines we just drew. So basically what I'm going to do is take this line, I'm going to extend it up so it goes through this top horizontal line and extend it down so it goes through this bottom horizontal line. And remember, those are still construction lines. So I'm going to line up my triangle right with that vertical construction line, and I'm going to extend these up so you can just draw right through it. So that's what I just did. I extended that line down and up so it crossed those two horizontal lines. And keeping in the same pattern, in number 18, we have to find the rightmost point of the object. So the thing that's furthest right is this line right there, okay? So now we found it. In number 19, we're going to continue that vertical construction line at that point so that it crosses the horizontal lines we just drew. Just like we did to the left, we're going to do the same thing to the right. So what we've got to do is we're going to line up our triangle right with that line, and we're going to extend it so that it crosses the horizontal lines that we drew, okay? Now, basically what we've got now is a 2D rectangle that encompasses the extents of a 3D rectangular solid. That's what we drew, okay? And we're going to use that to help us center it up on the green paper. So number 20, to help us see it better, we're going to darken in that box that encompasses the object as object lines. So that means we're going to darken in this horizontal line from here to here, this horizontal line from here to here, and then come back and darken in this vertical line and this vertical line. So let's do that. The reason we do that is so it helps us see our measurements better. So I'm gonna line that up. I'm gonna draw that as an object line. I'm gonna come down, hit this as an object line. Then I'll come back and hit these vertical lines. So I'll hit this one, and then I will get this one. All right, now we've got our box, okay? All right. So in number 21, it says take down a sheet of drafting paper and draw the drafting template. So we've already done that. So we can untape our computer paper now, but keep it because you're gonna need it.